Today we're going to conclude Luke's Gospel in chapter 24, verses 36 to 53 at the end. And one of the real mysteries of the resurrection stories that Tom Swada and I were actually just talking about is how come or why did, for example, Mary Magdalene in John 20 think Jesus was the gardener and didn't immediately recognize Jesus as Jesus? Why, on the road to Emmaus, do Cleopas and the other disciple, why don't they immediately recognize or perceive that the risen Christ is in fact Jesus? And I don't have a great answer for that. We don't know, did he look that much different that they couldn't recognize him in a resurrected body? And yet Luke, in this final section, clearly makes the point that Jesus says, "Look at my hands and my feet. See that it is I, myself. Touch me and see, for a ghost does not have flesh and bones as you see I have." And he showed them his hands and his feet. While in their joy, they were disbelieving. So Jesus is right in their presence, and they're still not fully believing and wondering. He said to them, "Have you anything to eat?" And they gave him a piece of broiled fish, and he took it and ate it in their presence. And obviously the purpose of this story is to show that Jesus had a fully resurrected body. He was not just a ghost. He wasn't some ethereal soul drifting in and out of their presence. And yet he has this ability to suddenly appear. This is part of where the mystery of faith comes in. And again, we need to understand, for many people who don't share our faith convictions, it's stories like this and that make it hard for some people to believe. How could he have a physical body that you could see and touch and could eat fish, and yet he can be somewhere and then show up somewhere else? And you can understand why rational, scientific, logically minded people have trouble processing all of that. And Luke seems to recognize that himself, as does Jesus. In verse 38, which is our verse for the day, Jesus said to them, "Why are you frightened, and why do doubts arise in your hearts?" Jesus is speaking to fear and doubt, even in the face of the greatest thing that ever happened, his resurrection. And as I shared with Tom, part of me wonders if the lack of recognition on the part of Cleopas and the other disciple, of Mary Magdalene, could it be that because we simply just don't believe that Jesus could have risen from the dead, and so they can't see him even though he's right in front of them? And Luke makes the point that it's in opening the scriptures that we really come to see and know Jesus as the risen Christ. And just as in verse 32, where it's when he was opening the scriptures for us on the road, again in verse 45, it's then he opened their minds to understand the scriptures. So that's why it's important that we spend time in the Bible, hearing, learning, praying, seeking wisdom and understanding, because the more the scriptures are open to us, and the more we are open to the scriptures, the more we will grow spiritually and in our knowledge of and relationship with Jesus Christ.